Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 227 with John Gray. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when he shares with us how and why most relationships are not thriving and what we can do about it. I also loved all the practical tips he gives us for epic relationships and what to do if you're currently experiencing a challenging time right now in your relationship. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head on over to melissaambrosini.com/227 right now. Welcome, John. I'm so excited to have you on the show. But before we dive in, can you tell us what you had for breakfast this morning?
Well, I got up this morning. I probably meditated 2 hours today. Then I had a green drink, which had a lot of different vegetables in it. Then I did a couple of interviews, I waited a few hours, and then had a cup of coffee.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing that you meditate for 2 hours. That is awesome. Have you always done that?
Sometimes more. I'm 67 now, but when I was 18, I learned transcendental meditation. I became a TM teacher, the youngest TM teacher. I stayed with Maharishi for 9 years. I was his personal assistant. And then my brother was bipolar and meditation didn't fix it for him. So I studied psychology, went to California, and eventually studying psychology became a counselor. But I've always been a meditator. I think TM is a good basic technique, but when you've been doing it 50 years, you do more advanced stuff. And it's effortless and easy for me. It's like going swimming.
So how old were you when you first learned? And that's amazing. You were Maharishi's assistant. Wow, what an experience.
It was 9 years of having a great role model. I started at 17 and was just in love with meditation and love with the teaching. And he said, I like to have different people around me. One who would just follow orders and others who naturally think the way I think. And I was one of those. And then I sort of found my path. And what's so interesting is that, I could do his teaching in my sleep. I taught it all and everything. And people would come to him with problems and I would help transmit his answers to them. But if it was relationship issues, he would say, relationships, I'm a monk. It's not my issue. It's not my expertise. Don't ask me questions about relationships. And ironically, then I went in to teach the one subject he was inept at and didn't have any clue about. And that was relationships between men and women. So it's interesting how that goes. I started becoming a counselor and everything I learned, I saw didn't work. And because it was a time of this late 70s and early 80s, everybody was trying to make men into women and men would think something's wrong with women. Women would think something's wrong with men. And it still happens if we don't understand that people are different and everybody's different. But when it comes to gender, there's a lot of generalizations that are often true. And I emphasize often, not always. And if you think everything should be your way, you become very judgmental. And this tendency that we have as humans is amplified when you're having a sexual relationship with someone dramatically. They become like one with you, and then you just don't understand and you resist when they don't think, behave, or react the way you would. And when I started counseling, I saw how women just didn't understand men, and I could explain men in a positive light. And men, clearly, as I'm counseling women, I go, I have no idea where they're coming from. And that's because I didn't judge them for their differences. And that's important. We tend to be judgmental when we feel powerless or we don't understand something. We're not getting what we want. We want to control others. And you start to control others by judging them, criticizing them, manipulating them. And really, that's what couples do in relationships. Whenever you get upset with your partner or complain, you're trying to get them to change. And when you become a meditator and you find fullness within yourself, relationships become more about unfolding and giving more. Certainly you have your needs, and that's important, but it's more about giving. But to do that takes an enormous amount of knowledge of, well, what does your partner need the most? And what does he need the most? Sometimes a man needs space, whereas a woman needs you to ask her lots of questions. So these are like big, huge differences. By going into somebody, listening to them, penetrating, that's the masculine energy. Sharing, expressing, that's the feminine energy. Come inside me, see what I feel, see what I think. And men don't understand the power and the importance of giving room for women to express how they feel without reacting back to her. There's a lot of resistance to embracing that men and women are different, because happiness comes when you're a woman if you're balancing your hormones and generating more female hormones than male hormones. And if you're a man, happiness and motivation and confidence, all of that comes when you're more on your male side than your female side. But today, so many of the young people and even older people, men go to their female side, women go to their male side, and they're not happy. How to find the balance where you're on both sides. That's the message of Beyond Mars and Venus.
And how do we find that balance?
What behaviors, if you're a woman, will stimulate the right hormones for the right day of the month for you? Because it changes every day of the month. And once you're in menopause, what do you need to do then? So the first step in finding balance is to recognize you're out of balance. Okay. What are the symptoms of out of balance? Well, you're not happy, period. If you're not happy, you're out of balance. If you're stressed, you're out of balance. Anytime the hormone cortisol is elevating, you can either go to, I need help, or I can do it myself. When you go to reaching out for help, estrogen's going up in your body. When you go to, I can't trust anybody to help me, I have to do it myself, your testosterone goes up and your estrogen goes down and your progesterone gets used up. So the female hormones, when women go to that independent side and they're under stress, they lose their female hormones because we have all these psychological theories about men, oh, you need to talk about your feelings, and women, you need to get him to talk about his feelings, if that's going to solve problems. Well, that's called arguing. And that's the worst thing you can do is have these emotionally charged arguments. Arguments are fine if they're difference of opinion, but if somebody's getting emotionally charged and it's the man, it's not going to resolve well. If the man can learn to listen to a woman's emotional charge, it will go down very quickly. He has to learn the art of listening. She has to learn, in this case, the art of giving him space if he needs to take it and how not to provoke him when he takes time away. And you have to not buy into it and realize that this is temporary emotional response. That's what when women go to therapists, and 90% of the people that go to therapists are women because it has such great value for them, talk therapy. But you have to go through those emotions before you can come back to no big deal. Life is amazing. No big deal is the doorway to appreciating everything in your life.
Does this apply to same-sex couples?
Absolutely, it applies because if you have a woman's body, you have the same need for these hormones at different times of your month. After your period, for the first 5 days, your testosterone levels will be naturally will be a little higher, but your estrogen levels are also low and they'll start rising. So if estrogen is psychologically, when estrogen levels rise, it's your feelings of need for help. So after your period, there's 5 days where often women report, feeling rather independent on their own, and that's a balanced state for them. But then the body goes to, for the next 5 days, it's preparing to ovulate. And when it's preparing to ovulate, her needs will increase. Her needs to feel feminine. To feel estrogen is different from progesterone. After ovulation, then she needs more progesterone. That's where same sex is the most supportive. Estrogen, when you need it the most, those 5 days before ovulation, that's when you need to be in relationship with somebody you're dependent on. So yeah, same-sex marriage or relationship, if you have a feeling of I'm dependent on this person for something significant for me, as opposed to just friendship, the dependence is more intimate, more revealing. And the more intimate and naked you can get, the more revealing you are, then you're going to feel their surge of estrogen come up in your body. And that's what you need. Now, everybody's different. Their sexual balance is different and so forth. So there's no one right way here. But at the same time, a woman needs to be able to feel in a relationship with another woman where she really depends on her partner for certain things at that time. And generally, in a same sex relationship, one always tends to be more masculine, generally speaking, and one tends to be more feminine. So the one who's feminine needs to have priority. First of all, she needs to go to her most vulnerable place and feel heard, feel supported, feel cared for, feel romance. Then you take turns. But today, we want emotional fulfillment, and the highest emotional fulfillment is a relationship that takes you to orgasm on a regular basis.
I was going to segue into talking about lovemaking and how important do you think it is in a relationship? Because I've heard people say, oh, it's not that important. It doesn't matter. So I want to hear your perspective on this. And then I'd also love to hear, how regularly do you think is ideal? I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's desires are different. But, what is ideal? The amount of times that you think we should be making love each week? And how important do you think it is in a partnership?
Again, everyone is different. You have different requirements. In previous generations, having sex, passionate, great sex, was something people might have experienced for a few months and it was over.
Oh, no.
And everybody knew it was over. If you said to your mother, I want to marry this man, and why do you want to marry him? Because, we're passionately in love and you're having great sex, clearly, when you say that. And that's the nature giving you the attraction, trying to make you make that commitment. And, it bonds you with somebody, great sex. It's such an amazing thing. It is the highest level of emotional fulfillment you can have, and it provides a foundation for achieving self actualization, which is living in the flow, which means always growing in love. Now, that's not a reality in the past. That's not the way relationships were. We call those role mate relationships. My parents had a loving role mate relationship. They stayed together, they loved each other. They certainly had great passionate sex in the beginning. And I read his telegrams to her, and oh, he was a romantic, passionate guy. That's where I got it all from. But by the time I came along, all that was gone. They even slept in different bedrooms. And, at a certain point, they stopped having sex altogether. Well, that's actually very common in America right now. There's all these sexless marriages. People have sex. Basically, once a month is a sexless marriage. Also, many men will complain, my wife doesn't want to have sex. She's not that interested in having sex. Like the woman you just talked about, it's not that important. It's not that important. Well, what that means basically is she's not having great sex. So if somebody says, it doesn't matter to me, I cringe, basically. I feel sorry for that husband. For most men today, they want sex. And when they're not getting it, then they lose the passion, they lose the interest in their partners. And then the women initiate divorce because they say he ignores me, he's not interested in me. They usually don't say he doesn't want to have sex with me. What they say is he's not interested in me, he's not romantic, he doesn't listen. Someone who looks at why people get divorced, and that's on the rise, it's been on the rise again and again and again. Divorce is they're generally speaking not having passionate, great sex. And of course, if you say why, there's many reasons why that they'll find. They'll say, oh, we argue outside the bedroom. He neglects me. I don't get enough romance. I'm too tired. I'm exhausted. Men will basically say, I've tried many times. She's not in the mood. I've just lost interest. So there's a lot of different reasons and categories of why couples stop having sex. But I simplify it down. Now, what's different between our present time generation, where we have these men who are more in touch with their female side, more women more in touch with their male side, is the potential for sex to be great is better because you can have both those energies together within you and share it with your partner. But also the potential to not have sex at all is greater as well. It's like we have such higher potential now. But if women are way on their male side, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed and you're a woman, you're too far on your male side, period. That's it. And that's the thing I hear most. If you're resenting your partner, complaining about life, you're way on your male side. You're not happy. You're not fulfilled. Angry men just aren't being fulfilled sexually. I mean, I know that's a kind of a broad thing, but when you have been fulfilled sexually with a woman who loves you, what happens biologically is your testosterone levels double. Okay, testosterone, whenever a man's testosterone goes down, his estrogen tends to go up. He becomes angry. He becomes irritable. He becomes aggressive. He becomes mean. He becomes defensive. The worst qualities of men only occur when testosterone levels are low and estrogen is high. The worst qualities in women, generally speaking, occur today when her testosterone is being produced throughout the day and her estrogen or progesterone is too low. So it's the desire and need to make estrogen that causes women to feel attraction to men. It allows women to feel attraction to partners, to feel love. You don't feel the love for someone because you don't feel the need to make estrogen. Now, when I say feel the need to make estrogen, you're not consciously going, oh, I need to make estrogen. Your body is saying, when you're feeling like I want to have sex, your body's saying, I feel safe and I need to make some estrogen. So come have sex with me. That's what the body is saying this because sex, romance that precedes sex warms her up where she feels safe. And then her estrogen levels can start to rise with a man's attention, affection, touch, kissing, stimulating, and intercourse and orgasm. And she's basically happy for 30 days. Okay. It's a ground. She resets to being more of a woman rather than this woman who's lost touch with her femininity. All it takes ultimately is just one. Now, for extra pleasure and fun and connection, more is fun, but too much is not good, particularly with men, because it's the man, his energy has to awaken it in a woman. Okay. It's because he is feeling desire for her. He also is in balance. So he has an understanding of her. He's able to slow down in sex. He's able to do foreplay in sex. He shows through his actions and his behaviors and on a date by being attentive to her like any single guy would. He still has that same interest. Well, married men don't have that interest. It's not as easy for them to have that interest, but I'll tell you how you can get there in a minute. But I discipline myself. Anytime you discipline yourself, your testosterone goes up. Anytime you delay gratification to achieve a noble purpose, your testosterone goes up. Anytime you indulge in what you like, your estrogen goes up. So as a man, I strengthen my testosterone through discipline. I also have discipline in sex, which is the most powerful urge there is. And as a man, he can learn how to have sex. It means you first of all, you go slow, even though you want to go fast. You understand her rhythm. You stay with her as she's guiding you through her sounds and her responses, never to go more than her. For example, I wouldn't even do anything but gently caress a woman until I found her breathing was automatically arousal breathing. She needs to naturally become aroused. In the Taoist philosophy of sexuality, they say the first orgasm is just the breathing. You breathe together in arousal state. These are like little waves of excitement and pleasure that will increase her pleasure. And then when you have intercourse, you need to become disciplined as a man to not ejaculate till she's had several orgasms. And women are quite capable of having several orgasms unless you just go straight to the clitoral stimulation and you don't go through all the foreplay stuff. Then what will happen is she'll have an orgasm, but it's more like a woman with a vibrator having an orgasm. It's not the feminine orgasm. Just you want to create desire in her. See, that's the whole thing for women is you have to generate desire in her, and he has to hold back from just going right to his goal, which is ejaculation. So you basically want to go through waves of pleasure with her, regulating through her responsiveness. And it's just like sparks are flying. And that's orgasmic, full orgasm for both him and her, but not ejaculation for him. So what you do if you're having boring sex, you're still having sex, is you look at some research. This is real research. This is biology. This is not this person or that person. This is literally everybody. Okay. So this is some basic things. You cut your finger, you'll bleed. When you ejaculate and you're a man, the next day your testosterone levels will go down. They don't go way down, but it basically, you have a basic level of set point testosterone for every man. That's your, I'm okay, I'm good. But it's not like I'm Superman feeling fantastic. It's I'm okay, good. Now, when you have sex and she has an orgasm, your testosterone levels will double. You'll feel like super. This is the best thing. Look what I did. It'll be great. But then what happens, because when you ejaculate, your estrogen levels shoot really, really high. It lowers your testosterone for a while. So you'll go down to set point. That's often why Saturday night sex is followed by Sunday watching the football game, sitting around doing nothing, ignoring your wife. That's generally a pattern in our cultures. But the biology of this, the testosterone goes down to set point. Then they measure this testosterone over the week, and it slowly increases if you don't have sex for 6 days and you don't ejaculate for 6 days. On the seventh day, your testosterone levels double. That's doubling your testosterone. That's alpha male. That testosterone, that's desire. That's a really hard penis. That's the ability to have more stamina. And the more you practice this, your stamina in sex increases and increases to where you can last longer before ejaculating. And that's the discipline is in the beginning, you have to practice not just ejaculating right away. You get excited, you relax the whole thing, you come back. But the key to it is you have sex, you eventually ejaculate on Saturday night. You go for 6 days and it will double on the seventh day. Now that is very rare because most men will masturbate or they'll have sex again during the week. And they don't realize that what they're doing is preventing their body to hit its peak point again and double that testosterone level, increase higher levels of testosterone in his body over time, support the prostate gland. And this is because he masturbates too much or he has too much sex.